Call of Duty. It's pretty prolific for only 10 letters. This three-word phrase conjures up many other three-word phrases when uttered in the minds of gamers around the world. Shock and awe. Generation-defining multiplayer. The numbers Mason. Nicki Minaj skin. In the 2010s, Call of Duty established a 3-year cycle, where the first game would be by Sledgehammer Games, the next by Treyarch, and the next by Infinity Ward. Now in the 2020s, we have a 2-year cycle. The first game is interesting for 3 months before drying up due to a lack of content and Activision's greed, and then the next one will be shit, but people will retroactively think it's cool when they're complaining about one of the other ones. But amidst this sine wave of quality, there has been one straight line. Operator skins. Characters that were originally meant to showcase the wider factions at play in modern and historical conflicts have now been boiled down to a load of military OCs do not steal running around the battlefield instead of actual soldiers. Since 2019, the skins for these operators have been getting wackier and wackier, and the amount of out-of-place crossovers has been growing. Yet all of this is but a symptom of a wider problem. The presence of these skins are but a means of letting something much more insidious permeate Call of Duty. Anime. I'm a weeb, so it's fair to say I like anime quite a bit. I also generally have some COD games that I like, albeit as a guilty pleasure. I kind of enjoyed Modern Warfare 2022. I'm sorry, Ground War was fucking fun. So why is it that when you combine these two things that I like, I feel a sense of resigned disgust? Well, that's kind of like asking why I, as a person who likes jelly beans and mayonnaise, would rather not eat a full soup ladle's worth of those things mixed together. The first big infiltration of anime into Call of Duty, at least in the mainline titles, was when there were several anime skins in Modern Warfare 2019, but only for guns and vehicles. Looking back on it, one might say this was the tip of the iceberg for anime's introduction to COD, but with hindsight of what comes later, a lot of these aren't actually too bad. Skins after and even before Modern Warfare 2019 looked much, much worse. Now, having anime girls on your guns isn't necessarily tactical, but from what I've heard of accounts of people who've been to military bases, it isn't inaccurate either. However, the skins on the gun are largely ignorable if you're not the one using it. Anime would start having a much more unavoidable presence in Call of Duty Vanguard. Vanguard was a game set in World War II. Yes, that one. And it also featured the first direct crossover with an anime franchise. That was the collaboration with Attack on Titan, releasing stickers, skins, charms, and executions, but most importantly, 2 operator skins based off Levi and the Armored Titan. If you don't know Attack on Titan, the Armored Titan is a giant muscle-bound freak created through generations of forced mutation and cannibalism, and Levi is a regular human soldier. Yet somehow the skin based off the former looked much better than the latter. The reason for this is down to the operators themselves. In this installment, you played as Vanguard, an Allied powers task force made up of Sledgehammer's World War II OCs. As a result, operator skins had to be pushed onto an existing character. In the case of the Levi skin, it was pushed onto Daniel Takeyatsu. Fun aside, this guy is based on a real World War II soldier that Sledgehammer are now puppeting around. Good work, guys. You might have noticed that Daniel Takeyatsu and Levi don't really look that similar. But where there's a will, there's a way. And what makes for a better will than shitloads of cash blown on getting the IP rights? The Levi skin that costs you as much as a pub lunch looks like a bored father doing Attack on Titan cosplay because he was forced to take his daughter to an anime convention. Which is ironic since Daniel is at least 10 years younger than Levi is. While it looks shit, I will at least praise Sledgehammer for choosing Levi instead of Eren. It makes more sense, because if Eren was in World War II, I don't think he'd have joined Task Force Vanguard, you know. I think he might have preferred the folks that Vanguard were fighting against, you know. Enemy team. By the time Modern Warfare 2 hit the scene, the problem of pasting an anime character on top of an existing operator was removed, as now separate characters would just be treated as their own operator. And once you've got the likes of Messi, Homelander, and the fucking Sardaukar running about, you aren't really gonna suddenly draw the line at the odd anime character. As indeed was the case for Hellsing's Alucard, who, Infinity Ward, at least tried to stretch the art style a bit to make him look like he did in the anime, and speaking of stretching, this fucking chin. I'm half surprised that they didn't release this alongside a new map set in the Uncanny Valley. Alucard was the first and seemingly last time an anime character would appear as a standalone operator, as the next year there was a Gundam skin, but that was once again on a pre-existing operator. And after that, there were no more anime collaborations outside of COD Mobile. No more anime collaborations because now Activision were trying to make their own anime characters, and dear lord, what is this? Remember those Gundam skins I was talking about earlier? Well, COD's desire to create a waifu has never quite gone away. They've been slapping waifus in hidden corners in every installment since then. They even landed themselves in a bit of hot water when one of the guns in Vanguard released this skin. The controversy was not that they had the audacity to try and convince us that this skin would belong on a gun from the 1940s, but instead the controversy was about the character on it. It was called the Love Drunk Melody skin, and people felt that it was a copy of Project Melody. I will say that they have a similar aesthetic, but there are several differences between the girl on this gun and Melody. Now, they could have called it something else though, because having Melody in the name is always going to bring up the image of Project Melody, and whether this is intentional or not, I feel some people might have been drawn by the association with both the name and the similar character design. I don't think Activision should have paid royalties, because even if they had given a bit of money to VShojo when the skin came out, Melody still wouldn't have gotten any payment. VShojo might be surprisingly crucial when it comes to explaining some of modern COD's approach to skins, since a lot of them have that, for lack of better terms, Twitch aesthetic. Vaguely cyberpunk with a purple or pink tint. Like what Blade Runner 2049 might look like to people who have only seen this part and assume this is the whole movie's colour palette. Why this aesthetic is becoming so popular now is beyond me, but I feel it's got something to do with how the average young adult uses either fairy lights or LEDs to light their bedroom instead of just opening the fucking curtains. This kind of philosophy has bled into COD, with their attempts at creating an anime girl now staining the operators themselves, which are much more noticeable than just a gun, because bear in mind, these are the people you have to canonically believe are an enemy faction. COD Mobile might have gotten a Ghost in the Shell collaboration, but Black Ops 6 wanted to bring the fun to the mainline series by releasing a skin that looks like the Nickelodeon version of Kusanagi. There's this one which has cat ears called Nico Nico, which is short for Nico Nico no. The ugliness of these characters goes to the problem of trying to adapt 2D sensibilities to a realistic 3D realm. A problem that thankfully isn't much of an issue for Treyarch, because now they've got cell shading in the game, which is a non-cell shaded world, so they look even more awkward. There's this infamous skin, which looks like if Tokoyami Toa was a bored PGL instructor, but it's far from the only offender, because recently there was this skin, complete with an anime-style mouth, which is constantly open in a way that's slightly disconcerting, and I'm giving the nickname Winry Rock Bellend. There's even a gun which has a little waifu inside, complete with projections of her doing a quirky TikTok dance when you do the inspect. Consistent aesthetics are for chumps. It's become pretty clear that now Call of Duty really wishes it was Fortnite, and is trying to relive that moment in time where it nearly was. Unfortunately for Activision, Fortnite has already collaborated with all of the famous IPs that they probably wanted for Call of Duty. I'm willing to put money down that the reason they collabed with American Dad is because Fortnite had already done the Family Guy crossover. They've got to keep getting other characters in, because the operators they've made just look incredibly ugly when you try and do non-military aesthetics. And believe me, there's plenty of times they've done that. This is a furry. This is a furry. This is a character from a late 2010s horror film. This is a bad Squid Game cosplay. This is an actual Squid Game cosplay. This is a furry. This is Zuma Mr. Freeze. This is a hemorrhoid. This is punished Chris Pratt. This is a guy who bought gas station weed. This is the person who sold it to him. This is a guy whose actual operator name is Barbecue. This is... I don't mind this guy, actually. I like the cut of his jib. But if these skins are here to stay, then how about we have some fun with it? Activision appears to be backpedaling for Black Ops 7, but let's be real, because they're just going to add different wacky skins by the time they reveal the 2026 Call of Duty post-Modern Warfare. So here's a few suggestions I have for some anime collabs they could do. I've been thinking about what kind of franchise COD is looking for when they do a collaboration, but having done some analysis, I've got a decent picture of things. Franchises like Beavis and Butthead, American Dad, and the View Askew are all ones that were made by Gen Xers but became cultural phenomena amongst Gen Y, so that Gen Z would start watching YouTube clips of them and then use said clips at the bottom of TikToks consumed by Gen Alpha. So since they're angling for things that were popular from the 90s to the early 2000s, that means we've got an easy well to tap with anime that blew up on Toonami. I'd imagine we could put Vash from Trigun and Spike from Cowboy Bebop in there. And I would go with Haruko from Fooly Cooly, but I'd imagine Kanti would actually work better, seeing as there's a load of skins that already look like him in COD. As for Dragon Ball Z, which was also huge to the Toonami demographic at the time, that might be more of a problem. Goku's larger muscles and large hair make for a difficult hitbox when compared to the comparatively skinny models of COD. So if you want him in the game, you've got to find a much more lean interpretation of Goku. Thankfully, I found just the solution. As for modern tie-ins, we've got to get some Licorice Recoil in there. Chisato and Takina would make for good operator candidates, and Licorice Recoil as a whole is sort of perfect to go alongside COD. It's a story about peacekeeping and the moral grey area surrounding it, which is then completely ignored because we're more preoccupied with imagining what it would be like if the main characters started kissing. Licorice Recoil was actually a direct inspiration to Treyarch, as they saw the subway scene where a squad gets mowed down by thousands of rounds coming at them from every direction in an area no bigger than a subway platform, and they thought to themselves, oh yeah, let's make this a mode. The final anime I think they should do a collab with is Me. We have the generic every waifu who was designed to be the generic every waifu, but let's go one step further. I propose we add a gun skin in there to round out the bundle, which is just like that earlier gun I showed you, with the little waifu living inside it, except obviously it's going to be the Me girl. And instead of projecting just a short dance, it will play the entire short film. I've now used up all of the bits of Me that I can show on YouTube, so I've got to end the video here. It's for your own good.